On Friday, October 13th, 1307 at dawn, one man arrested an entire empire. Not a country, an empire. Hundreds of the most feared warriors in the medieval world, men who had fought crusades, who had more money than most kings, dragged from their beds before sunrise, charged with crimes so twisted they couldn't be printed in a church, tortured until they confessed to things they almost certainly didn't do. And the man who ordered it, he owed them money, a lot of it. That's not a conspiracy theory, that's documented history. Here's what blows my mind. These same 9 knights, nine, started as a volunteer group sleeping in a ruined stable in Jerusalem. Within 200 years, they had invented the credit card, built the first international banking network, owned fleets of ships, castles across 3 continents, and answered to nobody except the Pope. Nobody taught you that in school. They gave you a paragraph about medieval knights and moved on. But here's what they should have told you. The Knights Templar story is one of the most insane true stories in human history. It has everything: a rise from nothing, unbelievable power, a rigged trial, torture, a curse, treasure that vanished, and an organization that might still exist today in a different form. We're treating this like a cold case. What do we actually know? What's confirmed? What's myth? Let's go. By the end of this, you'll know exactly who the Templars were, how 9 broke knights built a financial empire, what actually happened on Friday the 13th, what the evidence says about the missing treasure, and how much of the Freemason connection is real versus Hollywood nonsense. No fluff, no Dan Brown, just the documented truth. And the places where even historians say, we genuinely don't know. Let's get into it. It's 1119. Jerusalem has just been captured by Christian crusaders 20 years earlier. The city is technically safe, but the roads to get there? Absolutely not. Pilgrims traveling from Europe to visit holy sites were being robbed, attacked, and killed on the journey. Constantly. There was no police force, no protection system, nothing. A French knight named Hugues de Payan walks up to King Baldwin the of Jerusalem and essentially says, "Give me a spot to sleep and my guys will protect the roads." 9 knights, total. That's the whole organization at the start. Baldwin gives them quarters in the ruins of what was believed to be Solomon's temple. That's where the name comes from, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. We just call them Templars. For years, these guys are genuinely poor. They're sharing horses. Their early seal literally shows 2 knights on one horse. Historians argue whether that symbolizes poverty or brotherhood, but either way, they were not exactly rolling in it. Then everything changed. In 1129, the Catholic Church officially endorsed them at the Council of Troy. The Pope's personal advisor, a monk named Bernard of Clairvaux, wrote what was essentially the Templars' hype document. He called them the ideal Christian warriors, holy, disciplined, deadly. That endorsement was a money printer. Donations flooded in: land, castles, farms, entire estates from nobles who wanted God's favor. The Templars became tax exempt across Europe. The Pope literally told every king, you cannot tax these guys. Within 50 years, they were one of the wealthiest organizations on the planet. From 9 dudes in a broken building to a multinational empire in a single lifetime. This is the part that actually matters for understanding the world you live in right now. Here's the problem the medieval world had. You're a wealthy pilgrim. You want to travel from Paris to Jerusalem, a journey of thousands of miles through bandit territory. You need money for the trip, but if you carry gold and silver on your body, you will be robbed, probably killed. There is no solution. Until the Templars. They created what historians confirm was the first functioning credit system in the Western world. Here's how it worked. You walk into a Templar preceptory. Think of it like a branch office in Paris. You hand over your gold. They give you a letter, an encrypted document coded to your personal details so it couldn't be forged. You travel to Jerusalem. You hand the letter to the Templar preceptory there. They give you gold. The equivalent amount, minus their fee. Your actual gold never moved. Only the letter moved. That is a letter of credit. That is the direct ancestor of the bank transfer, the wire, the credit card. Verified historical fact, not myth. And because Templars were everywhere, they had hundreds of these preceptories across Europe, the Holy Land, North Africa. They became the banking infrastructure for the entire medieval world. Kings started storing their treasuries with the Templars. The French royal treasury was literally kept in the Paris Temple for a period. They were lending money to monarchs, financing crusades, managing debt. Here's the kicker that nobody says out loud. The modern concept of banking regulation, the idea that financial institutions should be transparent, accountable, and auditable, traces directly to practices the Templars standardized. Your bank account existing with any kind of oversight at all? That lineage starts here. 9 knights broke, sleeping in ruins, built the foundation of global finance. October 13th, 1307, before sunrise, simultaneously, across all of France. Every Templar the French crown could find was arrested in a single coordinated sweep, over 600 knights, including Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, the man at the top of the entire organization. The charges were extraordinary: heresy, idol worship, spitting on the cross, obscene initiation rituals, denying Christ. The man behind it, King Philip IV of France, known to history as Philip the Fair, fair meaning attractive, not just. Because what he did was not just. Here is the documented fact that makes this outrageous. Philip was broke, deeply, embarrassingly in debt, specifically to the Templars. He had also previously tried to join the Templars and been rejected. He had already expelled the Jews from France and seized their assets to cover debts. He had debased the French currency and triggered an economic crisis so bad that angry citizens chased him into a Templar building for protection. And now, conveniently, he arrests the people he owes money to and charges them with crimes that, if proven, would let him seize everything they own. The confessions they extracted? They came from torture, documented, medieval torture, strappado, where your arms are tied behind your back and you're hoisted by them until your shoulders dislocate. Starvation, sleep deprivation. 36 Templars died under interrogation before they could even stand trial. Many knights confessed, then recanted when the torture stopped, then were burned alive for recanting, because recanting a confession was considered relapsing into heresy. Jacques de Molay himself confessed under torture, then publicly recanted. He was burned at the stake in Paris in 1314 in front of Notre Dame Cathedral. Legend says he cursed Philip and Pope Clement V from the flames, declaring both would meet him before God within the year. Philip died 7 months later. Clement died 1 month after that. Coincidence? Almost certainly, but history remembers it. The official historical consensus: the trial was politically motivated, the charges were fabricated or wildly exaggerated, and the confessions were coerced. That is not conspiracy thinking. That is mainstream academic scholarship. Okay, now we enter the zone where we have to separate confirmed history from the stuff that's genuinely unresolved, and the stuff that's just fiction. The missing treasure. What we know: when Philip's forces arrested the Templars, they found almost nothing. The Paris Temple treasury, which should have been enormous, was largely empty. The night before the arrests, witnesses reported Templar wagons leaving Paris under cover of darkness, heading toward the coast. The Templar fleet, a substantial naval force based at the port of La Rochelle on France's Atlantic coast, vanished. The ships were never found, no record of where they went. Did they escape with the treasure? To Portugal, where the Templars were never actually prosecuted and simply reformed under a new name, the Order of Christ? To Scotland, which was under excommunication and outside the Pope's reach at the time, hidden somewhere underground? Nobody knows. That's not dramatic YouTube writing. That is genuinely unresolved. What historians do know: the Templars in Portugal survived intact. Their assets transferred smoothly. Vasco da Gama, who sailed to India and opened global trade routes, sailed under the flag of the Order of Christ, the Templar cross. The financial and navigational knowledge survived. The Freemason connection, real or myth? Here's the honest answer: complicated. Modern Freemasonry formally emerged in the early 1700s, almost 400 years after the Templar suppression. Some Masonic orders do claim direct Templar descent. The Knights Templar degree exists within certain Masonic traditions. What historians verify: there are genuine overlapping symbols, rituals, and organizational structures between the two. Whether that represents actual descent, conscious imitation, or coincidental parallel development is genuinely debated. What historians reject: the idea of a continuous secret organization operating unbroken from 1307 to today. No credible evidence supports that. What's probably true: surviving Templars and their traditions influenced esoteric and fraternal culture in Europe over subsequent centuries, and those threads fed into what eventually became Freemasonry. Connection? Probably yes, in some form. Direct unbroken lineage? Not proven. The Friday the 13th superstition: did Templars actually create it? This one is almost certainly myth. The connection between Friday the 13th and bad luck predates the Templar arrests in documented sources. The idea that the 1307 arrests created the superstition appears to be largely a modern invention, popularized by a 1980s novel, not medieval records. The date is real. The massacre is real. The cultural origin story? Probably not. Here's what this story actually teaches us, beyond the swords and curses. 9 people with nothing but a specific skill and the right endorsement built an institution that changed the architecture of global finance. The thing that protects your bank deposit, the concept behind your credit card, the idea that money can move without physically moving, all of it has a thread that runs back to a ruined stable in Jerusalem in 1119. And then a man with power, debt, and wounded pride destroyed it in a single morning, using the legal system as a weapon, forcing confessions through torture, writing the history himself, that pattern, powerful institutions using legal process to eliminate financial rivals, then claiming virtue while taking the assets. That pattern did not stay in the Middle Ages. The cold case verdict, the Templars were real, the banking innovation was real, the political assassination disguised as a heresy trial was real, the missing treasure is genuinely unresolved, the Freemason connection is complicated and probably partially true, the Friday the 13th origin story is almost certainly myth, and the Templar story is still, 700 years later, the clearest example in history of what happens when you become so powerful that a king feels threatened. They started with 9 people and changed the world. Jacques de Molay's last words from the stake were a proclamation of innocence. The Vatican officially admitted in